The Prison Experience, Blackburn, Settling In, Chapter 9. While working as a grievance aide, I learned a lot. It made me aware of the different things that one could get written up for, that I, to start with, didn't know anything about. I met a lot of inmates and got to hear about a variety of issues that came up. The library was pretty busy most days. Anytime something out of the ordinary happened, someone would show up to file a grievance about it. I was the only grievance aide for a period of time. There were 600 inmates on the yard, and after word got around, I would get a lot of attention. Some days while just walking around, inmates would show up out of nowhere to ask about a problem that had came up. I understood that filing a grievance was about the only way inmates had to voice their concerns and to try to get problems fixed. But as a grievance aide, you hear about everything, and some issues were not grievable as outlined in the policy. When I wasn't working at the library, I usually hung out with my cube mate, Donnie. He had been at Blackburn longer than I had and was helpful with a lot of different things. Donnie had a radio, which he let me borrow. I started scanning the airwaves for rock music stations. After a while, 3 stations got my attention: Z-Rock 103, Double Q, and Classic Rock. The reception was very good. Listening to music in my spare time made me feel a little less imprisoned. Prison stuff was everywhere. The inmates, the guards, prison talk and such. So the radio became my escape from this prison world for a while. I ordered my first radio, a Sony, which only used 1 battery at the advice of Donnie. It was a good radio, fits into your shirt pocket with earphones. After I got it, I used it any time that I could. The radio became one of the most important things I had while in prison. I don't like TV and never ordered one. Just about every inmate had one, however. I ordered a new pair of high-top tennis shoes, and after finding out that we could order magazines, I subscribed to Esquire, Rolling Stone, Popular Science, and Digital Photography. I like reading magazines, so keeping up with the latest in music news and high fashion while in prison attire was good. One of the coolest things was getting cologne samples in Esquire magazine hand-delivered to me. Finally, I got to smell something good for a change. It was weird because I'm not sure to this day if the cologne samples were contraband or not. I never asked and never got written up for it. After a while, I amassed a large collection of magazines that to put in my bed, and inmates would come over and borrow them for a while. Everyone was really good about returning them, and I didn't mind. I also subscribed to the local newspaper from Pike County, which got passed around to everyone wanting to read it. I didn't care for the newspaper, but skimmed through it for anything I might find of interest. After a few months, my hair started growing back. It took some time to get it long again. I never cut it while at Blackburn. While settling in, I learned the basic daily routines of how Blackburn worked, when the guards changed shifts, when to get ready for the daily counts, when you could shower, keeping my bed and locker area clean, and etc. The guards checked lockers on a daily basis, and we went through numerous pat-downs throughout the day. I found it best to stay out of the dorm as much as possible and avoid the guards and not get in their way. It didn't take long to figure out that females worked at Blackburn. There were female guards, COs, secretaries, canteen workers, and even the wardens were female except for the first one who left not longer after I arrived at Blackburn. There were some nice-looking females who worked there. I thought I had to come to prison to find out where some of them were, as they seemed to be missing from the area that I'm from. Watching some of the females walk on the yard was a funny experience. I tried not to notice, but there were 600 guy inmates on that yard, and any time a nice-looking female walked anywhere on that yard, it became a spectacle. I kept my distance and only talked to them if I had to. I focused my efforts into getting another program that would reduce my time and learned that there was one of the teachers who did a lot of the programs was female, and her last name was Valentine. I first saw her through a door while passing by one of her classes. I thought she was attractive. Miss Sanchez was a female who had a lot to do with getting into the programs. I thought she was also attractive. It turns out that those in charge of the programs are some of the busiest people on the yard. It's difficult to find any of them alone, as other inmates trying to get into the programs and etc. are always talking to them. I wrote letters and spoke to my CO about getting into a program, any program. And finally I got my next one, MRT, taught by Miss Valentine. It was a 6-month program, and on completion, 90 days would be subtracted from my sentence. I sure didn't want to mess this up. After getting my workbook and attending the first class, I began to study the first chapter and learn the rules of the classroom and etc. Miss Valentine wasn't bad to look at either. However, she could be strict, and you had to do the program correctly to get through it. There was a voting thing where the other classmates would vote on whether you passed on to the next chapter after doing your presentation. So while working at the library, I would study and work on my MRT assignment when not busy with grievances.